A couple months ago, I went over the world's best indoor coasters. Those are coasters that are located inside indoor theme parks. Back then, I said, don't confuse this with enclosed coasters. These are coasters that are in outdoor parks, but take place inside a building. There are so many of these around the world, almost 150 up to this point, and today I'm ready to count them down. These are the world's greatest enclosed coasters. Of all the top 15 lists I've made, this one is the hardest to rank. Enclosed coasters are often less about thrills and more about theming, so some of the best enclosed coasters don't even have good stats, and the best thing you can do is ride them for yourself and get the full experience. I obviously haven't ridden all the great enclosed coasters around the world, so I did my best to pick out the best ones. But as always, if you have something to add, please do so in the comments below. Number 15, Laugh Track at Hershey Park. Underneath all the neon paint, this is a typical Maurer spinner. There are 9 of these in the world, and they're pretty good rides on their own. Laugh Track is by far my favorite of the bunch. Inside this giant building, themed to a funhouse, and you fly through picture frames, a tent, a tunnel, bright flashy colors on the wall, hanging down from the ceiling. And on top of all that, this is one of the smoothest rides I've ever ridden. Number 14, Psyche Underground at Wallaby, Belgium. This wasn't always enclosed. This Schwarzkopf shuttle loop opened in 1980 as Sirocco. In 1999, the park was trying to reduce noise from the ride and put the loop inside a building. And in 2013, they finished the job. This was actually closed for 5 years, standing but not operating. But when it finally reopened, both spikes are now in a tunnel. The flywheel launch was switched out for a linear motor launch, and it got its new name, Psyche Underground. It makes great use of lights and music, not launching you right away, but building up to it. And you can't see much of anything outside the station. I love shuttle loops, and the ride experience looks like something totally different. Number 13, Eurosat Can-Can Coaster at Europa Park. This is the coaster located inside the Epcot-style ball, a mock rides coaster that opened all the way back in 1989. It's over 3,000 feet long, 84 feet tall, and you can see here how the ride just kind of wraps around the inside. Until 2017, this was just called Eurosat and had a techno soundtrack. But in 2018, it was completely overhauled. Most of the track was replaced, it got new trains, and it got a new theme, Eurosat Can-Can Coaster, now themed to Moulin Rouge. You wouldn't think of a coaster themed to a French cabaret, but here at Europa Park, you got one. The coaster isn't too crazy, but it's pretty long and very immersive. Number 12, Van Helsing's Factory at Movie Park, Germany. This used to be a Gremlins-themed dark ride, but in 2010, after Parque Reunidos acquired the park, they turned this building into a horror-themed coaster, the Gerstlauer bobsled called Van Helsing's Factory. This has a dark ride section to start, a lift hill at only 26 feet, and it covers 1,300 feet of track. Pretty short, but just when you think it's over, it has a tire launch and sends you into the finale. It has some pretty good theming throughout the ride, and from my experience with Gerstlauer bobsleds, these are smooth and snappy and provide a great ride. Number 11, Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts at Universal Studios Florida. This was the main attraction with the opening of Diagon Alley in 2014, built by Intamin and a lot more dark ride than coaster. The whole experience leading up to the ride is very thorough, starting off in a bank, and the queue just keeps going, and going, and going. You end up in an elevator down to the vaults, and once you're there, you board the train. The ride starts with a tilt track and a drop, and once you hit the bottom, that's where the dark ride section starts. You got screens, motion simulation, really good physical theming, and it was totally worth the 90-minute wait. I know, this is barely a coaster, but it's a coaster nonetheless, and I really enjoyed it. Number 10, Studio Tour at Movie Park, Germany. This is one of the few coasters that peaks outside, but I'm still counting it. This is so well themed from the queue to the station, into the first dark ride section, a turntable, a tornado ripping the house apart, then a backwards launch, taking you into 12 different movie sets. You race another car, past King Kong, doing all of this on this intimate multi-dimensional coaster. And although it's just over 1,700 feet long, it has a lot going for it. Number 9, Space Fantasy the Ride at Universal Studios Japan. This has gone through a bunch of different themes since it opened in 2010, featuring different VR experiences. But in the end, it's a mock ride spinner, using 4-car trains, going into a custom layout, 62 feet tall and 1,900 feet of track. It's themed as a journey through space. You fly past planets and comets, gathering stardust to revitalize the sun. It looks a bit like Space Mountain, using 3 lift hills throughout the ride, all of those celestial visuals, a big loud soundtrack piped in, and it has that universal quality that's hard to match. I've ridden mock spinners and they're a lot of fun on their own, let alone with all these great effects. Number 8. Flight of Fear at Kings Island and Kings Dominion. These 2 coasters were built back in 1996, back in the Paramount days and themed to the Outer Limits. This was the first ever coaster to have a launch powered by magnets, getting up to 54 miles an hour and into a spaghetti bowl layout, 2,700 feet of track and 4 inversions. There's a lot of head choppers in the layout, but you can't see anything inside the ride building. This has an alien theme. You enter a government building where they keep a spaceship and alien specimens, so its theming leading up to the ride is good, but this is on the list for the ride itself. It packs a good punch and you're completely blind in there. Number 7. Rock and Roller Coaster at Disney's Hollywood Studios, and Avengers Assemble Flight Force at Disneyland Paris. These 2 were clones, and Avengers used to be called Rock and Roller Coaster until 2022. Now it features theming from Marvel's Avengers, and the original Rock and Roller Coaster is themed to Aerosmith trying to get to a concert. The ride is all about driving through Los Angeles, navigating the roads to get there, ending up at the VIP backstage area. You board your limo and launch up to 57 miles an hour, over 3,200 feet of track, 3 inversions, a sea serpent and a corkscrew. This is basically the same coaster as Express Platform 13, this Vekoma Looper at Wallaby Holland. So imagine this, but inside a building, Aerosmith music blasting the whole time, passing LA signs and landmarks. Pretty loose theming for a Disney ride, but a very good and smooth coaster. Number 6. Deep Space at Imagica. This Premier Rides coaster is located in India, all inside this giant dome, themed to time travel in space, and this has some very loose theming. It has planets hanging from the ceiling, and that's all I can see from inside the ride building. It starts with a well-themed dark ride section, the launch tunnel lights simulating time travel, and this has one of the better layouts on the list. It hits 45 miles an hour, almost 1,600 feet of track and 2 inversions, a 0G roll and a corkscrew, ending with a helix. I have it up here because of the ride experience more than the theming, but it does try to simulate stars throughout the ride, so I like the effort. You don't see Premier make custom compact layouts like this too often, so this is a pretty unique credit. Number 5. Space Mountain at Disneyland, Magic Kingdom, Hong Kong Disneyland, and Tokyo Disneyland. I know these aren't the same rides, but they all have the same idea. Racing around space with rapid turns and sharp dips. The Disneylands in Anaheim and Tokyo are longer by about 350 feet, also about 3 miles an hour faster. Hong Kong being almost 300 feet longer than that, but the main difference is the trains. At Magic Kingdom, you sit single file. At the Disneyland parks, it's more of your standard 2 across. Magic Kingdom's was first, coming in 1975, the perfect addition to Tomorrowland, themed to space exploration. And ever since Disney bought the Star Wars franchise, sometimes it uses the Hyperspace Mountain theme. This is a lot of kids' first major coaster, and even when I was afraid of riding, this was one of my favorites. It's only around 32 miles an hour, but in the dark and with those tight elements, you feel like you're flying. Decades and decades later, this is still regarded by a lot of people as the best ride in its respective parks. Number 4. Star Wars Hyperspace Mountain Rebel Mission at Disneyland Paris. This may be another Space Mountain at a Disney park, but this one is totally different. It's a Vekoma launch coaster that opened in 1995, the original name being Space Mountain from the Earth to the Moon, having that great incline launch up the side of the building, all the way up to 105 feet, into a 2,500 foot course that covers 3 inversions. Yeah, this Space Mountain goes upside down, and as of 2017, it has the nice new Vekoma trains using Vesta strains. I have no idea if this is better than the standard Space Mountain. I could see it going either way, but its stats are much more impressive. Number 3. Revenge of the Mummy at Universal Studios Florida, Singapore, and Hollywood. Once again, we have the same ride across 3 parks, but not exactly. These have different ride experiences despite having the same theme. The Mummy movie franchise starring Brendan Fraser. Right when you enter the building, the ride experience begins. The queue is dark and has a good Egyptian theme. You board and see Imhotep says he wants your soul, and you go into a course of forward and backward sections. 3 LIM launches in Florida and Singapore, 2 in Hollywood. The one in Florida having a really nice airtime hill. And you also have special effects like scarabs appearing on the wall in front of you, a fire effect, a fog display, even a fake ending where you think the ride's over, only for Imhotep to suck the ride op's soul and launching out of there, into twists and turns before the ride ends. The Hollywood version is about 300 feet shorter, 1,900 feet against 2,200 feet. 20 years after its debut, it's still popular and the ride holds up over time. Number 2. Tron at Shanghai Disneyland and Magic Kingdom. The Shanghai version came first, built in 2016 and called Tron Light Cycle Power Run. Then Magic Kingdom got theirs in 2023, and that's called Tron Light Cycle Run. These are themed to the movie Tron Legacy, riding those motorcycles from the film. These have the same layout, launching you into an outdoor section covered by a dome that's lit up blue at night. So if you can get a night ride, that's where you're going to get the best true experience. After this, it goes into the enclosed section. This is most of the almost 3,200 feet of track, the train not moving too fast but winding its way down, using the darkness to accentuate the Tron theming. All you can see are those neon wheels in the train, the blue arrows and hexagons lighting up as you pass, and it does its best to make you feel like you're in the movie. Number 1. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot. This is Epcot's first ever coaster, opening 40 years after its debut in 2022, and they got a good one. This was built by Vekoma, themed to the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, starting with a well-themed queue, a couple pre-shows, and basically, you're battling this big nasty thing called a Celestial, and you can use a cosmic generator to create wormholes in the galaxy, but the Celestial steals it. You board the ride, you blast that cosmic generator. That causes an explosion where you launch backwards, getting up to 60.3 miles an hour. From here, one of 6 songs will kick off, one of those 70s or 80s classics from the movie, and you spin your way across 5,577 feet of track. Just an insanely long ride. You go past screens and physical theming. Not too intense, but it's a lot of fun to spin and enjoy all the theming. I call this a modern day Space Mountain. Same concept of riding through space, just with all the modern amenities. Spinning cars, screens, just more immersive and less dark. This is my personal favorite enclosed coaster, and my second favorite Disney coaster, just behind Expedition Everest. That's all for the world's best enclosed coasters. Let me know what you think, if you agree or disagree, and what other coasters should have been added. Like I said, this was incredibly hard to rank, and there may have been a great one that I didn't talk about, so if you know of a good one, let me know in the comments below. Before you go, please drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you love baseball like I do. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.